You're listening to the Multiverse Fancast, proud member of the Misfit Faction Media Network. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Multiverse Fancast. Don't forget, if you guys are listening to us on the go, you can find us on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, basically anywhere you get your podcasts. You can also find more of our content on our website, themisfitfaction.com. There you'll find links to not only this show, but some of our other shows like Cinematic Adventures and MF Uncensored. As always, I'm one of your hosts, Paul, and we have a special episode today. We are doing something that we have never actually done before, and that is a video game retro review series. And if I'm going to do something out of the ordinary, I need somebody that's extraordinary. And today we have guest starring from BlindBat8719, the YouTube channel, is our good friend Brendon. Brendon, how are you today?
I am doing awesome after that introduction, Paul.
Oh, I put a lot of thought into it. I put a lot of care into it, and I don't really like you that much. I mean, what? But no, thank you, Brendon, for coming in. So it's funny. I've been doing, podcasting for a long time, and I'm a huge nerd, as everybody knows. But we have not on this show really tackled video games.
Nope.
And for me, I have always been an avid video game player. I have a PlayStation 5 sitting over there. I beat Spider-Man 2 in a week, probably less, and I was taking my time.
That beats my record. I think I did the first Spider-Man game in a month.
I will. Well, we're going to do an episode. Brendon just got the PlayStation 5 and Spider-Man 2.
Woo-hoo!
So as soon as he finishes that...
Thank you, wife.
Yeah, thank you, wife. Happy wife, happy life, all that. But when he's done with that, we'll do another episode. And I think he'll say the same, that the first one felt a lot longer than the second one.
Okay.
Very strange. And they claim it's about the same time. It wasn't. I was finished pretty quick with the second game. But anyway, so we were talking about what we wanted to discuss while we had some time. And Brendon brought up, they just released it on the Switch, the Arkham series. Mm-hmm. Probably the definitive superhero franchise in terms of video games. Now, there have been some very good superhero video games, and there have been some really, really bad ones.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the bad ones tend to outweigh the good ones, which is sad.
Unfortunately, but again, it's one of those things with adaptations. How many bad superhero movies are there versus the really good ones?
Yeah, but arguably, the Arkham series set the template for the modern superhero video game to the point where there's jokes that they really should have copywritten their combat system.
You're right. They really should have. Because speaking of Spider-Man, very similar. I mean, it fits Spider-Man's play style maybe a little more appropriately. But you're like, yeah, I've done this before a lot in Arkham.
Yeah, it's a little jarring sometimes that a lot of games tried to copy the formula from the Arkham series, and it's crazy. The first game came out in, what did we say, 2009? I
think it was 2009.
2009, the first Batman Arkham Asylum comes out, and nobody knew it was going to be a behemoth of a game.
Well, nobody was expecting. Because I think the last Batman game was Batman, the Sun Tzu or something.
No,
like that?
they did Rise of Sun Tzu, which was based on the animated series. They did a Batman Begins game.
I remember. I actually did play that. I liked that.
And it wasn't bad.
No, it was fun.
It was all right. I'm pretty sure. I think they even got Christian Bale to do the voice, which is even funnier. Worst Batman voice, but anywho. So you got this game, and until then, it was actually Spider-Man 3. Or, excuse me, Spider-Man 2 that everybody claimed was the greatest superhero game of all time.
It really was. It made you feel like you were actually Spider-Man swinging through the streets of Manhattan. You got to do the loop-de-loop around the train and everything.
And you got to deliver pizza and save balloons.
Oh, my goodness. I love that Easter egg in the Spider-Man on the PS4. I love that Easter egg.
Oh, yeah. There's some good ones. But it wasn't until Arkham Asylum that a game actually challenged that status quo. Because up until then, I'm trying to think. Batman and Spider-Man were really the definitive superhero video game characters.
The only exception I would say, yes, I agree with you, but I would also add in X-Men. I think had a lot of good games as well.
I'll argue that X-Men had a better run on Sega Genesis and PlayStation 1 and 2.
Oh, yeah. No, I'll give you that. Because I think the only other games that were coming to mind with X-Men, I would argue, would be you had the Capcom fighting games. So that's really shown in there. And they did, I think, X-Men Legends. I think the PlayStation 2.
So
you're right.
There was... Well, there was also an X-Men fighting game. I forget the name of it, but it wasn't too bad.
A Mutant Class or one. I remember having them.
Mutant
PS1.
Academy or something.
Yeah.
They did too, I think.
They did, yeah.
But that was also the time that the movies were coming out because you can unlock the movie skins, which was a big thing. But there was also the top-down 4-player cooperative games, X-Men Legends, Marvel Ultimate Alliance.
Yes.
I really wish Marvel Ultimate Alliance got a remaster. I would play that. It was so good.
It was fun. The only gimmick I didn't like was that if you just did, or maybe it was more of the X-Men ones, but were like, if you did the Age of Apocalypse skin, didn't matter what character you used, they all got a pump, and I'm like, that's kind of cheesy.
But so like there was a really weird wave of superhero games where it was pretty good, and now unfortunately like Spider-Man's got the mantle.
Yes,
we'll see what happens when Wolverine comes out, and they have a Blade game coming out. I heard Midnight Suns was very good, but it wasn't everybody's cup of tea, just play style wise. It was card based.
Yeah, so I've been meaning to try that one out, and when it first came out, I didn't realize it was PS5 exclusive for like a few months. So I've been meaning to try that one out.
Yeah, and then you had some crappier, like as bad as it was, I did enjoy the Avengers game, and I was excited to play it when I finally got it, but it was just a micro transition, play to win, terrible grinding system, and very repetitive.
Yeah, I heard some stuff like that. I'm like, I have a hard time now trying to find time to play games. I still have my own personal backlog of working through. So if I hear something like that, that's what the game's like, yeah, I'm checking out.
Yeah. So let's go into this game system though, because it is I will say it is one of my favorite series of all time. Even Arkham Knight, which fell short in some regards, it's still, they're all super enjoyable. We're also going to talk about Arkham Origins as well.
I think they did a great job of getting the right balance between action and stealth. The stealth is harder, but I think if you pull it right, it's much sweeter. I was watching videos on YouTube of people who would spend hours figuring out the best way to do those stealth missions.
Oh yeah.
And when they do it, they're like, they get it done in a minute, and you're like, that's how Batman would do it. Not my clunky, all right, I take out 2 guys and I'm fighting the other 8 because that's what I'm good at.
So let's talk about what like the common themes throughout the series, and then we'll talk about each game individually. Okay. So obviously you're playing as Batman for the majority. There are some, like a lot of the side characters are there, Robin, Nightwing, Batgirl, and they are playable in certain regards in the later series. You could do challenges with them, the challenge maps, which are either combat or stealth. And they each, like, there's a ton of skins and characters and mods, DLC, where you play as like Batgirl in one of them, you play as Jason Todd, you play like, so there's some playability. It is a shame they never did co-op with this game.
That would have been fun, but but you're right. The main play with this one is that you are playing as Batman, so that makes it when the times happen when you play somebody else, which to a great dramatic effect. You're like, wait, what the heck? Okay, this is different.
Well, I love I think it was Arkham Knight that they introduced the switch over, where if you're fighting like Batman and Nightwing, they would actually switch you could switch between them. They could do dual takedowns. It was really cool. But for the majority, the first game is just Batman.
And I think it did a great job of making you feel like you are Batman. I think the story was written by Bruce Timm or Paul Dini. I think it's I know one of them had a hand in it. They were also able to get the iconic voices of Kevin Conroy, Mark Hamill in the game. So as a kid of the 90s who grew up watching Batman the Animated Series and all of the stuff that Kevin Conroy did, to be like, this is the first time they felt like they made a game where you're like, yes, I'm Batman, I'm here, I'm stuck in Arkham, and now I have to try to stop the Joker from doing his plan as well as stop everybody else from doing their thing. Like, it did the different things they threw in, the detective vision, for example. So
let's talk about detective vision. So that's another thing that's become a big staple of games, the kind of altered vision. I found myself using detective vision almost more than the regular standard vision.
It gave you so many more advantages where you're like, oh, hey, there's something I didn't see before. Like, oh, that's where I should be going.
This was one of the first Batman mediums, besides maybe the animated show, that showed his detective skills.
Yes.
And it was a big part of the gameplay. Like, you'd have crime scenes. You'd have to put things together. Especially once you get to, like, Arkham City and Arkham Knight, you had a lot of side missions. Like, they did the Hush storyline with Thomas Elliott. Or not Thomas. Yeah, Thomas Elliott.
Yeah, Thomas Elliott.
But I always found myself using the detective mode way more than unless you were in a fight. I feel like I was always in detective mode.
I think I tried to. I sometimes did see it as cheating, but again, it's a helpful tool. And like you said, I think having those investigation like side quests really like that made you feel more like. This is how Batman's typical night goes. He's working on the main storyline, but then, oh, hey, somebody just ran over somebody. Let me figure out, okay, let me take some paint samples from the clothing and figure, okay, this is from a Model 92 Ford F-150, that's from, it was painted back in 1992 from this motor company in Gotham, from, Acme Paint.
Yeah. So they also did a great job at making Batman exceptionally vulnerable, especially when gunfire was involved. Like, you could not fight guys with guns in any of these games.
No, you definitely hit it. With the combat flow, you probably spent more time dodging, but as you upgraded your gear and you got better at the game, you knew, oh, hey, that's the guy to kind of beat up first, or at least, and then as you got better in the game, you broke the gun. They had bits too where there was a gun safe nearby or a gun
and you could
crate.
booby trap it and stuff.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some of the gadgets. They had some very iconic gadgets, and ironically enough, they keep the gadgets pretty consistent throughout the series.
I think the only biggest change I remember was more like, I think the grappling gun changed slightly from the first to the second one, because the grappling gun had an upgrade in the first game where you had to pull down like 3 things at once. Mm-hmm. But when they went to Arkham City, they got rid of that, and I forget
just one at a time.
Yeah, they changed it to something else. But when you think about it, it's like, well, yeah, you got rid of that type of puzzle where you needed to knock out 3 things at once. So yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, you had like the standard Batarang. You had the remote control Batarang, which was way more puzzle based. Like,
yes.
You were using that more for like Riddler trophies, which we'll talk about too.
Yeah.
And then you had
the one that was 2 lines. You made your own little rope line and one.
The zip line type deal. Yeah,
you can jump on top of.
You got freeze blast in one of the games. The explosive gel.
Yep.
The electric gloves in just Origins.
Oh yeah.
And then a couple of others, but for the most part, like.
And just to kind of jump off with the gadget thing, just to talk about it, because they made a great use of it, was the fight in Arkham City with Mr. Freeze.
That is considered one of the best boss battles in video game history.
Yeah.
Because it's so different, it's so unique. And so for those of you guys who aren't sure what we're talking about, there's a fight with Mr. Freeze in Arkham City where you can only attack him the same way once.
Yep.
So, like, one time you could do a stealth attack, and then one time you could do like a booby trap, or one time you could do the explosive gel. But you had to attack him different ways each time. It was the perfect utilization of all the skills that you have learned up until that point.
Yeah, and I think what's also great too is a lot of times with games like of this type, you would just use like, oh, there's a big tree of things you can use, but you're only going to use 2 or 3 things every fight. And so now this forces you to use like, I'm not used to doing like vent takedowns or using the explosive gel to take out a guy and be stealthy and whatnot. Mm-hmm. So it forced you to like, I never used this tool before. How does this work, you know?
Yeah, I was a big fan of it. And let's talk the story, though. The story of the Arkham series is fantastic. The first one is very simple, and you could definitely tell they did not plan to franchise this at the time.
You definitely, with the way the first one ends, do you want to talk about the whole story, like the spoiling stuff right now?
Yeah, these
okay.
You know, now people are playing the trilogy on the Switch, which was spoiled when they accidentally released the Robert Pattinson Batsuit.
Oh, okay.
They accidentally sent it live, and then they're like, "Oh no, that's not it." And
so yeah, with making the choice to have the Riddler, what looked like, die in the scene, and it take that much toxin, you're like,
you mean the Joker?
I said, oh, sorry, I didn't mean the Riddler, the Joker, yes. I've had the Joker take that much toxin and like, oh, God, okay, I guess he bit it this time, you know?
Ironically, that's the weakest boss fight in the entire series, like in the entire game. I won't say the entire series, because when we get to Arkham Knight, I have an even worse boss fight. But yeah, so basically the Joker, it opens up with Batman capturing the Joker. They're walking into Arkham, and it's a great, like,
oh yeah,
this game benefits from a great story.
There again, I think it
is Paul Dini.
It was Paul Dini, yeah. So Paul Dini writing it, and I think he drew on some influences of, again, where like there is a comic book where Batman is stuck in Arkham and he has to take everybody out. Kind of similar also to the Bane storyline where he's out running around trying to capture all the bad guys and whatnot. But I felt like they kind of told almost like a classic Batman story where it's him versus his rogues gallery.
Yeah.
And, it's almost like it's like wish fulfillment for fans of Batman.
This should have been the Ben Affleck movie.
Yes!
It would have been great to see him wheeling Jared Leto's Joker into Arkham Asylum.
Yep.
And then suddenly Commissioner Gordon's kidnapped. You've got this barrage of rogues. And the thing is, do we need the origins for all of Batman's rogues? The general population knows who the Joker is.
Yeah.
They know characters like Two-Face and even nowadays like Scarecrow and some of the more obscure villains. But it should have been the movie.
And I think also too, like when you say about the origins of characters, despite the fact that some are more well known than others, sometimes just that mystery of like, how does Batman know the Calendar Man, for example? Mm-hmm. If you just have if you make an interesting scene of just the Calendar Man and Batman, you're like, hey, what's happening there? And I think that makes the world feel more lived in, where they don't need to explain like, oh, that's Julius so and so, that's the Calendar Man, like
Yeah, but so Batman escorts the Joker in because he believes that he, let himself be captured.
Yep.
And we find out that there's a new version of Bane's Venom being formed there called Titan. And Titan is Venom on steroids, which is already steroids on steroids. So the Joker's trying to get it. That's his big plan. And he kidnaps Commissioner Gordon, and basically that's more the distraction for Batman. And you're going throughout the entire asylum. There are some things like a Scarecrow pops up a few times with the fear missions, which is fun. But and then you're dealing with a lot of the rogues gallery,
and then the Riddler has his little thing of like hunting down the different trophies, which is more to challenge.
Oh my god, they definitely did not expect the Riddler trophies to take such a big picture, because in the second game, I don't think I've ever gotten all the Riddler trophies.
I think I went for platinum trophies for PlayStation for all these things, so I think all the Riddler trophies.
I did not. I lost all attention span. I got enough that you were about to fight him as a final boss, but I've never actually done it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then obviously the third game, I think it's more the Riddler races.
Yes, with Arkham Knight, it's the races stuff, which is, again, that's one. Well, we'll get to that one in a second. So we're basically, so I think, so if you would say what would be the retro review grade, or the Arkham City grade, I guess you would give for Arkham Asylum.
I'm gonna give it a 4. It is a fantastic game. There's very little to gripe about. But I think the only reason it's not a perfect game is because there are other games in the series that are better.
I'm just going to save some time and agree with everything you just said about that. I think it's 4. Right, there's better games in the series. But as a first starting point to at least get to those games, this was awesome. I was very happy being on Arkham Asylum and just living out fantasy being Batman.
Yeah. So obviously the game does phenomenal. It's still listed as best superhero video games categories. It's got accolades. It's got more awards than you can shake like a feather at. So 2 years later, Arkham City rolls around, and Arkham City definitely it raised the stakes. It raised the scale, and they basically section off a part of Gotham City and designated it as Arkham City.
Yep.
And you actually saw plans for it in the first game.
Yes.
There's a blueprint. Yeah. So many Easter eggs. We can spend a whole episode just talking Easter eggs about these games, and they do a great job. But it is an open world Batman game, and oh my god, flying around the city, even just a small portion of it, is still one of the coolest things ever.
Oh yeah, it's the. Again, the comparison before then would have been the PlayStation 2 Spider-Man 2 web swinging mechanic, and this is the one where you're like, wait, I can just swing, fly around the whole city being Batman and never touch the ground once. Like, again, wish fulfillment all over the place right now,
And this game starts off same thing, very cinematic with Bruce Wayne. He's running for mayor of Gotham.
Yep.
And I do love the line. I think Vicky Vale's doing the reporting, and she's like, "Millionaire Bruce Wayne." And he walks by, "Billionaire." Millionaires are so 90s, or something like that. It's really good. We didn't even mention it's Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill.
It is,
and it is peak.
Oh, it is. Totally is. And, it was just, again, as children of the 90s, hearing those voices while I'm playing the game, I'm like, this is as good as it gets.
Mm-hmm. I think really my only gripe with especially Arkham Asylum and then a little bit in this one is the characters are very stoic. Like they don't move.
Oh, like he's really upright and like action figure-esque.
Very action figure. Like the Joker is a little bit more bouncy. But it's funny because playing Spider-Man 2, they switched to motion capture for the actors.
Oh.
And it is, when they do cutscenes, they're moving and talking, and it's very realistic, which is sometimes a little jarring. But anyway.
One of the weird technical things I learned about in this game, starting with the first one, I think they continued into Arkham City, was there were times where you're forced, like Batman's having a phone call conversation, and you find out from the technical side that was to delay the character from the player from moving too fast, so they actually load the next scene while Batman's on comms with Commissioner Gordon. I thought that was like an interesting behind the scenes tidbit.
Oh yeah, because there are no loading screens for the most part in this game.
No,
it's
they're disguised.
Yeah, well that's the same thing now. Spider-Man 2. I know I hate comparing still, but they got rid of fast travel's now instant.
Oh.
So once you unlock...
Not on the subway or whatnot?
No.
Oh.
And even for the remaster, they took out the subway stuff because just the PlayStation 5 was so much more powerful.
Okay.
But yeah, like if you do fast travel, it is immediate, which is wild. But so this game, they've sectioned off this section of Arkham City for the inmates, and it's like this no man's land. Like Oswald Cobblepot has his like gang and stuff like that. Like
Two-Face has his other side of the property.
Yeah, it's broken up into gang factions and stuff like that. And Bruce Wayne gets captured and infiltrates it. And we find out that the Joker is alive and well, but he's also not well.
No, more unwell than usual.
And we find out that he's actually been poisoned by the Titan, and he poisons Batman with it, so that he needs to find a cure. And it's a really good game. And the story is Batman not only trying to uncover the secrets behind the city and why it's there, but also to find a cure for himself and the Joker.
And I think it did a great job of some more like more interesting characters in terms of like institutionalization, with like Hugo Strange being one that's like one of those ones. Well, he's not beefy adversary. He's somebody who's one of the few people that figured out who Batman was. You have, I think, Ra's al Ghul makes an appearance, if not Talia does, and then they throw back all that history into the and like it's like where did you build a lair in the middle of the city like this? Out of nobody knew about the League of Shadows moving in. But yeah, it was just so again they changed mobility around by adding in the thing. The game is bigger than Arkham Asylum was in terms of. Again, we've already talked about the Mr. Freeze fight came in this situation. We had return of the Riddler puzzles, which got to be interesting. Is Azrael in this one? Oh, that wasn't in the next.
That's Arkham Knight, I think.
Arkham Knight, okay.
But this is also the first game that they did Nightwing and Robin for challenges and DLC with further game story. Arkham Asylum had downloadable content that was just challenge maps, and apparently the Joker was a playable character in one of them, only on the PlayStation 3 and Return to Arkham versions. So that's probably why I didn't know that, because I was at Xbox at the time.
Ah, okay.
But for this one, they did. You had Catwoman as a playable character in the story.
Yep.
She also got her own challenge maps. And you also, like I said, Nightwing and Robin, and then Robin got a story where he has to rescue Batman from Harley Quinn at the end.
I do remember playing through that. Yes.
And I did enjoy, they had costumes for every character. The animated series costumes were the only ones that were a little jarring sometimes.
Yeah, because again, this went for a realistic look. It didn't really go comic booky in the, like in a softer way. If anything, it went more realistic about some stuff.
Yeah, so it was a little weird when you would change, because you could change almost all of them. And we'll talk about the suits at the end and our favorites and some of the ones that just didn't work. But yeah, I really enjoyed, I loved playing as Nightwing.
Of course.
Robin was a lot of fun to play as, but Nightwing was my guy. Like, I would do the challenge maps. I would do challenge maps for hours.
I really was only, the combat was the one I was more into the most. Yeah. That was, the stealth stuff wasn't my forte. I just got too frustrated about nope, I'm not going to spend my time trying to figure out the best optimal way. One of the cool, again, this is another game that had a lot of Easter eggs, and I think one of the coolest ones, because you were in Gotham City, technically, you were able to visit Crime Alley, and like that little montage, you go there and you just have like the way you pay the respect. Like there was a little icon, you show up, like pay respects, and just the emotions you kind of felt like, oh wow, yeah. And might as well go to the end, I guess. So we'll breeze through the story for you. But again, he gets sick, blah blah blah. He fights, puts all the bad guys away, and then we have the face down with the Joker, or so we thought.
Great twist.
And as you were saying before about detective vision, that's another mechanic in the game. If you do detective vision of the Joker before the final fight, you're like, hey, everybody else in the game has bones when you do this. When you look at their skeleton, there's no skeleton here. What's up? And then you find out the twist is it was Clayface impersonating the Joker. And then once you deal with all that, you look at the Joker, who is in a wheelchair with a needle coming out of his arm for an IV and just looks like death warmed over. He really does not look in good shape.
So I'm going to give Arkham City a coveted 5. It is a perfect game.
Do I have a gripe with this one? I think maybe I'll go with 4.5, because I think at times it was just I didn't like that it went as big in terms of the map being bigger. I think I liked that Arkham Asylum was a little bit smaller and everything was a little more condensed. But still, 4.5, this is an amazing game. Like, this is one of those that you tell people, like, you must play this game.
Right.
If you want to have an open world experience or just an amazing, if you want to talk about the best games of PS3, this is on the top 3 list, I would say.
Absolutely. Now let's jump into Arkham Origins. A little controversial.
Well, it diverted a lot. It was a different studio that made this one. We said it was WB Montreal as opposed to Rocksteady, who made the first 2 games.
It's a prequel.
Different voice actors. I think they got the newer Batman and Joker voices this time.
It was Roger Craig Smith plays Batman, and Troy Baker plays the Joker.
Troy Baker, yes. And yeah, so it was kind of cool having this. the almost the obligatory early day visit of Batman where he is wanted by the cops. He's not friendly with Commissioner Gordon, and he's only had a year or two doing this. And, who were the villains back then, which were more mobster based? I think Black Mask.
Black Mask is the main villain, and he's hiring assassins to get Batman.
Which I think as a concept was actually pretty cool.
Well, the trailer is fantastic.
Yes.
The cinematic piece between with him fighting Deathstroke,
yeah.
it still holds up.
Yeah.
It is so good. And that boss battle is probably one of my favorites, which is ironic considering what happens with Deathstroke in the next game. But yeah, Brendon's looking around like, what happened? Because that's how forgettable it is. But that was a great boss fight. And just, you have Bane making a less Baney appearance.
Yes.
I think Deadshot's in it too.
I think it also was a Christmas game, I think,
it is.
as well.
It takes place on Christmas Eve.
Yeah, I think it was one. I'm not sure. I don't remember if the other games had this, but I know Arkham Origins had that mode where you get one life. Beat the whole game on one life.
Yeah, I think that I don't remember which games have that, but I know that's a thing.
But I remember trying things. I'm like that. That would be the most Batman thing ever. You could save. You could still save and restart your save if you pause the game fast and before you died.
Yeah.
But I was like, can I actually beat this whole game on one?
And I think you had to do it on a certain difficulty too.
Probably the hardest difficulty.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things going with the fighting mechanic. Why it works out so well. Why a lot of people like it is that they basically gave Batman Spidey sense. Mm-hmm. He has a little blue battering over his head that when a bad guy was about to hit you, and it turns red if it was something like you can't actually.
So yellow was dodgeable. No, blue was dodgeable. Yellow was like a knife that you had to constantly dodge or distract. Yeah. Then red was completely unblockable.
You had to jump over that or something like that. The big guys had that. But when you went on to the darker, the harder difficulties like New Game Plus and whatnot, they took that indicator away.
Yeah.
But the game was so good because you could see you could actually watch the thugs. He's about to throw a punch. You can see him throwing the punch, and they gave you just by watching the animations, mm-hmm. you could do that. You still be effective, and it was something that was again made you feel like you were Batman.
Yeah. So I did enjoy Origins. It is not the best of the series.
I think that has more to do with maybe the story and possibly a little staleness at this point.
Yeah. But
I would say probably I would give it a 4. I still think it's a fun, enjoyable game.
I'm going to give it a 3.5 just because I don't remember it too. Actually, you know what? I'll go with the 4 also just because I do think that there are great story beats in it. There's a great scene between him and Alfred in the Batcave where Alfred's convincing him not to go out, and it's a different kind of Batman Bruce Wayne. But let's talk about the last one of the series, because we're not going to talk about Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League, which apparently is in continuity because at time of recording it's not out.
Yes.
So we could speculate, but I'm good with that. 2015, Batman Arkham Knight, the last official of the Batman series, rolls around. And the hype was big because it also demanded the next-gen console. You could not play it on the 360 or the 3. Mm-hmm. You had to get a PlayStation 4. You had to get an Xbox One. That's the reason I got an Xbox One.
Was it a launch title?
I don't think so. I think both systems were out.
Okay.
But this was the first one where it didn't have the multiple system options.
Yeah, no, I remember oh man, I'm going to have to buy a PS4 now.
Yeah, because all the other games were compatible with both the current gen and the previous gen.
Yeah.
So, because that's a big gaming issue where games are coming out and console exclusivity is one thing.
Yes.
Right? Spider-Man's a console exclusive. Halo, if you want to go back a little bit, that's one thing. But if you're going to do a multi-console system, a game, it's a big point of contention in the gaming community that, hey, the new system's out. Let's make it just for that system.
Yeah.
It alienates a fair amount of your fan base because they just want you to buy the next system, which most gamers do anyway.
Yeah, eventually you get there.
Yeah, I mean, I still got to get the Series X at some point, but for me, the question was when PlayStation 5 and Series X were out, which console exclusives do I want? And Spider-Man was the only one that was currently available.
Yeah, so I've been since I got a PlayStation, I've basically been PlayStation for life. Mm-hmm. I have not dipped my toe into the Xbox waters at all, outside of maybe getting Halo for my PC.
I like Halo. I was a big fan of Fable when it was rolling around.
I heard good things about it, but never played it.
But yeah, same thing. There's nothing. I'll try and go from there. But so Arkham Knight demanded the next gen console for one simple mechanic. Well, simple now, but one main game mechanic. Do you know what that is?
Which one was that?
The freaking Batmobile. The Batmobile's complexity. There we go.
Yeah, complexity.
Demanded the need for a higher generation. Had the Batmobile not been a part of the game, it would have been compatible with the current generation and the previous.
Would have looked as pretty though.
The Batmobile is probably one of the biggest points of contention in the Arkham series fan base. The addition of it and the over-reliance on it. Most people did not enjoy the Batmobile combat. I myself included. I did a playthrough of the game maybe a year or two ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate the Batmobile sections.
I think I'm in agreement that it's not my favorite part of it because I think what the games, if you're talking about like what follows through each game, it's the idea of swinging through the city as Batman. You're not like, yes, you see Batman with the Batmobile in all the comics and the movies, but he could drive wherever and he's going. I know it just feels like in the game, I'd rather just swing there, which I'm used to, as opposed to learning this new thing. And we've all played GTA driving. GTA driving is not great, and this is kind of up there because you try to accelerate, you always over accelerate, you never hit the brake on time, and you end up crashing the thing half the time.
Yeah, and the problem was, like, if I needed to get somewhere far away quickly, then the Batmobile was a very fast option, and it also directed you.
Yes, that was really nice.
But then there was the one mission where you had to stealthily take out like 10 tanks.
Yeah.
Oh god, I hated it. It was tedious, and the Batmobile would die very quickly against tanks and stuff like that. And you were just constantly bouncing back and forth doing the dodge.
Yeah, because I think that's the other thing too, is that it didn't have vehicle combat like Twisted Metal, where you're driving a car and if you drove past somebody, and then you had to circle around. It had this tactical left-right thing that felt unnatural for a car, even a supercar like the Batmobile.
Yeah, and that was also the final boss battle with Deathstroke, was a tank battle.
Yeah, that's why it's not as memorable.
Yeah, but the story's pretty good. I always laugh. It's pretty good. I do laugh. Like, everybody's like, the Arkham Knight, it's definitely Jason Todd. And Rocksteady was like, no, we made this character up. He's not the Red Hood.
I hated that.
Oh, really?
No, sorry. I hated that they lied about it.
Yeah, I get they want to try and keep the surprise, but
yeah, I mean, at least dance. Don't outright say it's a new character. Like, I was really hoping that it would be a new character, just because. Make your own claim about some stuff. You're as a fan of Batman, you're making this for fans of Batman. Yeah, we're seeing this from a mile away. The missing son. Okay, it's gonna be Jason Todd. Okay, why couldn't you just made it somebody else? Like, you throw it into the mythos somehow.
Yeah, and then when they realize it, it's like, oh my god, we're all like, we know.
Yeah.
But they did the flashback stuff, and obviously, and also the Joker's dead. But he's in a hallucination in Batman's head because of the Joker toxin that's still in his body.
Yes. And
that's part of the story. The story's twofold. It's Batman dealing with the Joker stuff, and it's the
Arkham Knight.
The Arkham Knight and Scarecrow taking over the city, basically.
Yeah.
Batman does get unmasked during it, and he presumably dies if you do the full playthrough, but then he's actually alive. It's weird. But for me, the game is pretty good. I'm going to give it a 3.5, though.
Again, I'm much more forgiving about stuff. To me, it's a good game. It was a fun time. I'm gonna go with a 4. It closed out the series nicely. To me, again, felt it. What I did appreciate is that they, with every ending and every story, they went to where the next logical thing was. Mm-hmm. Like, all right, the Joker almost died. Okay, we did one fake out in the second one, but ultimately the Joker dies.
Right.
All right, and then Batman's sick, and where does it take the next logical thing? Yeah, I leave my legacy to you guys now, and I'm going to take myself out. Because once you know who Batman is, well, I kind of got to get rid of the evidence now. In a big bang, no less.
All right, so we're going to close out the episode with a fun topic. What are some of your favorite character skins?
I really only have the one that I went so far as to buy a can of NOS energy drink, because that was the only way to get it.
Which one?
The Batman Beyond skin.
Oh, the Batman Beyond skin is probably... The fact is, which is even better, the fact is that, the animated show one is cool, but they made it so Arkham.
Which I thought was again, that's taking something that I like and making it work in universe in your game. It had more of this mechanical look, almost like a suit of armor, closer to the Arkham Knight. Yeah. But I'm that's what a futuristic suit should look like. I think
there was just some clipping issues with the wings, just because he
didn't have wings.
It's the only. Well, no, he gets the little red ones,
You're right,
from the show. But yeah, it's cool to have. I did like the Batman vs Superman skin.
Yes.
They had the Dark Knight Return skin in there, but I think the Batman vs Superman one looked better. Like he had like the brass knuckles in the gloves. Like It was really cool. I'm trying to think some of the other skin. Like I think Robin had a couple of good ones. Nightwing had some good ones.
Yeah.
Catwoman had like the old school show ones, which was funny.
I always liked seeing that one. Yeah.
I think the Arkham Knight only had 2.
Yeah.
You could play as the Arkham Knight or as Red Hood.
Yeah.
And Red Hood's design was okay.
Yeah, it's nothing. Again, it's a jacket with a red mask on. I'm not.
It's been done better in other things.
Yeah, I mean, I did think it was cool. Again, you could see like the '89 Batman. You're like, this suit is definitely not made for this game.
Oh, absolutely. I'm gonna look it up really quick. Some of the best skins. Let's see. We got, obviously you got the old school Batman gray one, the Dark Knight one.
Yep.
Oh man, the problem is some of these you can't even get anymore if you do a playthrough.
That's true, because some of them they were exclusives, or again, it's been so long, it's timed out.
Mm-hmm. Trying to find like some actual just images, but it's got a little rough. The gray and blue one's pretty good. They did have like the more cartoony Batman Beyond one.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of these are really good. They did a great job with the skins, and that's half the fun too. Like same with like the Spider-Man games, just doing like the different costumes and all that.
Yeah, but I will say, well, just about the Ted, but just with Spider-Man, I did think the new one Sony came up with for their re-release was really cool with the white spider. I thought that was actually like it stands up there with some of the more iconic costumes,
which is ironic because you look at Spider-Man 2 and they cut out a lot of costumes.
Well, like then again, there was also a mechanic, I feel like, in the first one where when you unlocked a new suit, it had a new power, which helped.
No suit powers in this game, in Spider-Man 2.
All right, I'm not going to spoil anything else for me right now.
Sorry, well,
No.
that's a gameplay mechanic.
And
but
that's fine.
When they did the remaster, they added a bunch of suits, like the Kane Parker suit, the red and black one. Oh, it's so nice. But that is going to take us to the end of our episode. It's nice, like this is a game series that pretty much, if you look at it, it's about a 4 and all the way around, 4.5. Like there's even the quote unquote bad ones are still really good.
Yeah, if you want, this again this is a series that makes you feel and believe you are Batman. You get to fight like Batman. You get to solve crimes like Batman. You get to swing through the city like Batman. And again, there's a lot of fan service that didn't feel out of place. And if you know the stuff, great, you get to enjoy it. You also get the beloved voices of Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill in this game, which really do a big job of selling a lot of this stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's something that, when I was like, I'm going to play this, and I was like, wow, this is so much better than I actually thought it would be.
Better than it deserved to be, too.
So, I mean, again, I just remember playing the demo, and I think that's what sold people. That when you got that demo and you're playing that first room of stealth, and then you're learning, and then the combat, you get to practice, and you're like, yeah, I'm buying this.
Yeah. But that is going to wrap us up. Brendon, thank you so much for jumping in. Make sure you guys check out BlindBat8719 on YouTube, especially if you're Magic the Gathering fans. It's definitely the channel for you. If you guys want more of our content, themisfitfaction.com is the place to go. News, reviews, articles, and more. And make sure you check us out on all the social media. We're on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, whatever it is. Just type in the Multiverse Fancast or the Misfit Faction. Odds are you'll find some of our stuff. But that is going to wrap us up for today. As always, I'm Paul.
And I'm Brendon.
And we'll be back in a flash.